Chapter 17 of Zhang Henshui's Golden Pink Family. Reunion in the opera house makes me ashamed of my true face. Appreciating embroidery alone implies the roots of love. When Runzi came out, he asked Minzi softly, "It's strange. This guy named Liu seems to pay great attention to Zhao Lian. Did you see it?" Minzi said, "Why haven't I seen him? I don't know why. Zhao Lian is always evasive. Didn't you listen to the man named Liu? Was he there at the Xia family's wedding? I think that from that day on, he was in love with Zhao Lian. Zhao Lian is also invited. This may also be intentional." Runzi said, "You are absolutely right." When Miss B introduced the two of them, Zhao Lian seemed to be surprised. Now that he thinks about it, he is even more surprised. It's suspicious. Fifth sister, I'll call Miley here and let the one named Liu do it. How about him? Minzi said, "What's the joke? I just want to let the one named Liu do it for a few more days. It's just a dream." The two of them were talking here, and just as Miley came over, Zhao Lian was the only one left sitting on the chair. This time, Liu Chunjiang had a chance to make a speech. But which sentence should I say first? But I can't find a clue. Zhao Lian coughed slightly, lowered his head and looked at the ground without making a sound. Liu Chunjiang sat there and coughed twice, and everyone fell silent. Liu Chunjiang thought, "Don't be stupid. If you miss this good opportunity, where can you find it?" At that time, he said, "I have received the letter that Miss Jin gave me, but..." At this point, he paused and continued, "What I admire about Miss Jin is all out of sincerity. How can Miss? How deep is the rejection?" Zhao Lian almost turned red when he asked her, and she couldn't answer for a while. Liu Chunjiang said, "What I don't understand is why I can't send a message to the Jin family." Zhao Lian said 3 words softly, "It's inconvenience." Liu Chunjiang said, "Is there a place where I can hand it over?" Zhao Lian shook his head. Liu Chunjiang said, "So, after a while today, I don't know when we will meet again." Zhao Lian looked back, as if he had something to say to Liu Chunjiang, but in the end he just smiled. Liu Chunjiang said, "I think maybe Miss Jin will come to school in the future. I can send it to the school." Zhao Lian smiled and said, "I won't be in school in the second half of the year." Liu Chunjiang couldn't find it for a long time. When he came up with a topic to talk about, he now had something to say, so he said, "We are all young. It is time to study. Why don't we go to school?" Zhao Lian couldn't give a reason for a while, so he smiled and said, "Because I plan to go back to the south." Liu Chunjiang said, "Oh, go back to the south." But, at this point, he didn't know what to say, but he smiled again. So everyone looked at each other and fell silent again. Liu Chunjiang's fighting spirit finally defeated his timid thoughts. His face sank, and he said, "I really hope to become a literary friend with Miss Jin, but I can't say that." Zhao Lian said, "That's true. You're welcome. What I said has already been said in the letter to Mr. Liu." Liu Chunjiang said, "In that case, why did Madam give me another flower ball?" Zhao Lian said, "I didn't send it to Mr. Liu." Flower ball. Liu Chunjiang said, "It's a tuberose flower ball. It was sent by Miss Bai. Why isn't it?" Zhao Lian said, "That's really a misunderstanding. I sent it to Miss Bai, Mr. Liu." Liu Chunjiang said, "In any case, I think this is a misunderstanding and a coincidence. I really hope that Miskin will admit that I am a very loyal friend." Zhao Lian saw that. He kept pestering him. "I'm really sorry. If I leave him immediately, it will be embarrassing." At the moment of embarrassment, 2 male guests happened to come and sit not far away, interrupting Liu Chunjiang's love talk. After a while, the host invited more than 20 guests to sit down. Of course, the aroma was fragrant and the shoes were intertwined. Yu Jiener, who was present, deliberately caused trouble and moved the seats of the 4 Jin sisters to the right. The seats of the unaccompanied male guests moved to the left. On the front line of the men and women, one is Liu Chunjiang and the other is Zhao Lian, who happened to be sitting side by side. In this way, Zhao Lian also understood that even the protagonist had been conspired by Liu Chunjiang. It seems that everyone is very polite on the surface. Within 5 steps, everyone really has evil intentions in their hearts. It is the most embarrassing thing for a girl to have her secrets known to others. He would use his eyes to peek at the protagonist's face from time to time. Sometimes they look at each other, and there seems to be a smile on the protagonist's face. Needless to say, everyone already knew everything about what was on his mind. Therefore, I didn't pay attention to whether I was full or not during this meal. In the blink of an eye, the coffee was served, and I realized that the meal was finished. After eating, everyone took a walk casually. Liu Chunjiang seemed to be afraid of people's attention, but deliberately left the Jin sisters to hang out with others. But Runzi was naughty, so she took Zhao Lian and sat down together. He smiled and said to Liu Chunjiang, "Does your sister have a letter to send back at this time?" If Mr. Liu replies, "Please send my regards to my sister." Liu Chunjiang said, "Yes, I must write to tell my sister that it has been she has become friends with Miskin. I think she must be very happy to hear this news." Runzi smiled and said, "Yes, we are very willing to have more academic friends. If Mr. Liu has time, come and talk. We are very welcome to talk." Liu Chunjiang said, "I must go to see you. I think one or two of the four ladies will be at home." Zhao Lian just smiled. When she smiled, she seemed to be extremely dissatisfied. But Runzi smiled and said, "As my roommate, she doesn't go out much, so you can always meet her." Liu Chunjiang said, "Great, I will definitely visit in 2 days." As they talked, Minzi also quietly, when she came, she heard Runzi's accent and really wanted to tease the man named Liu. If the commotion continues, there's no guarantee that some kind of joke will happen. He said, "Let's go back." Then he nodded to Liu Chunjiang and said, "Goodbye." In this way, he led Runzi and Zhao Lian away. But Liu Chunjiang himself was very satisfied with today's meeting. On the second day, I barely endured it for 1 day. On the third day, I couldn't bear it anymore, so I went to Jin's house to visit Miss Jin. Minzi and Runzi originally had quite a social relationship, but when a male guest came to visit them, it was very unnoticed. As soon as Liu Chunjiang arrived at the concierge, he handed over his business card and said he wanted to pay a visit to Miss Jin. The concierge asked, "Which lady?" Liu Chunjiang hesitated for a while. It would be inappropriate to visit Miss Zhao Lian specifically. The first time is to visit their fifth lady. So he said, "Visit the fifth miss." If the fifth miss is not at home, the concierge said, "Maybe at home. Let me and you take a look." The concierge first asked Liu Chunjiang to sit in the living room outside, and then went in to reply. Minzi had made an appointment with Runzi, so the first time he was inconvenienced, he was criticized and had no choice but to come out to meet him. Of course, there was nothing to talk about. Liu Chunjiang chatted some gossip and left. From that day on, Liu Chunjiang came and went several times without seeing Zhao Lian. He thought to himself, maybe Zhao Lian was avoiding him, so that was all. About a week later, on the 7th day of July, various theaters in Beijing sang Tianhe Pei. Liu Chunjiang and several members of his family booked a special box at the Mingming stage to watch the show. It was a coincidence that the Jin family also reserved a special box to watch the show. The Jin family is in the special compartment number 2, and the Liu family is in the special compartment No. 3, close to each other. Today, the Jin family is hosting the eldest mistress, Wu Paifeng, and invites the second and third mistresses. Paifeng brought Zhao Lian, and Yufan brought the little girl Kexiang. Only Huiqing advocated class equality and abolished the slave system. Therefore, she did not bring a maid, only cleaner young maids followed. 3 young ladies were sitting in the front, while 2 maids and a maid were far behind. Zhao Lian was so focused on watching the show that he never noticed that there was an acquaintance in the next room. The female waitress brought the teapot to the private room, and Zhao Lian poured the tea. Yufan wanted to smoke a cigarette, but Zhao Lian walked over and wiped the lamp for her. Paifeng took a pear from the plate and handed it to Zhao Lian, and said, "Zhao Lian, peel this pear and give it to the third young lady to eat." When Zhao Lian heard that, she asked the tea server for a knife and turned her face away. "Go peel the pears. It's okay if you don't turn your face to the side. If you turn your face to the side, it's like being pronounced a death sentence in court, and your soul flies into the sky." It turned out that the closest person in the next compartment was Liu Chunjiang. As soon as Liu Chunjiang entered the box, he had already seen Zhao Lian, but she didn't wear any fresh clothes today, just a white flowered foreign cloth gown. Compared with the young women in colorful clothes in front of her, she was far away from her. At this time, I felt very strange and thought, could I have recognized the wrong person? But as soon as I passed the door of the second compartment, it was clearly written Jin Jai Ding. This was not Miss Zhao Lianyan's house. How could it be such a coincidence? When Liu Chunjiang was confused, he saw a young woman in the next box turning her face sideways and saying in surprise, "Hey, Zhao Lion, what's wrong with you?" Zhao Lion blushed and said, "Second young madam, what's the matter?" Huiqing said, "Look at your clothes." Zhao Lion looked down and saw that there were many red dots on the front. He also said, "Hey, where did this come from?" As he was talking, he dropped a little more, immediately put down the pair, and went to hold the skirt of his clothes. Only then did he see clearly. It turned out that there was a cut on the little finger with a knife, and it was bleeding. The waitress was still clever. Seeing this situation, she ran out early to get a pack of tooth powder and put it on Zhao Lion. The handkerchief held in Zhao Lion's hand was scarlet dots and full of peach blossoms. Pai Feng said, "You kid, you are too playful. If you watch a play, you won't even know if you peeled off your fingers." Huiqing said with a smile, "Don't accuse a good person unfairly. When I peel pears, my face is not facing the stage." Pai Feng said. Feng said, "Then why don't you know that you made a cut?" Zhao Lion pointed at his forehead with one hand and said, "My head is dizzy." Pai Feng said, "Tian He Pei is about to come on. You are not lucky enough to watch it. Let's go back." Huiqing said, "I was very happy to see Tian He Pei 2 days ago. Now that the show is right in front of me, why should I ask him to go back?" The dead duck flew away. When he said that, he took out $1 from his money pocket and said to Zhao Lion, "Take Qingqiu to the cafeteria to drink a cup of hot coffee and get some air. Come back later." Qingqiu, still only 14 years old, he loves to play even more. At this time, asking her to go to the cafeteria to drink coffee would mean that the second young mistress' love for her was in vain. He twisted his body and pouted, "I don't have a headache, so I won't go." Yufan said with a smile, "A dog bites Lu Dongbin. It's not good or bad." Zhao Lion, "You go alone. You call the cafeteria. Brother, I'll give you a hot hand towel and sprinkle some more toilet water on it. Once the fragrance comes out, you'll feel refreshed." Zhao Lion was eager to go away, took the $1, and walked out of the box without looking back. Liu Chunjiang was sitting next door and could already see and hear clearly. It was really strange that a famous lady in the seat had become a maid in front of everyone. If this was done intentionally, those young women who called themselves young mistresses must be Minzi's sisters-in-law. We don't know each other. Why is she making fun in front of me? And looking at Miss Zhao Lian, she was panicking, as if the secret had been revealed. Could it be that she was really a maid? But why did she participate in social interactions with Minzi and others before? I was only calculating this matter in my mind. I really didn't notice what was going on the stage. He tried his best to endure it for 5 minutes. When he couldn't bear it anymore, he walked out of the box and went to the cafeteria. Zhao Lian was sitting at a table, drinking coffee with her head down, not looking away. She suddenly raised her head and saw Liu Chunjiang barging in, and her face turned red again. After standing for a moment and then sitting down, she was stunned when she saw Liu Chunjiang. Although there was a word in his mouth, the sound was so faint that it could not be heard at all. Liu Chunjiang stepped forward and said, "Please sit down, please sit down." He sat down at the same table as Zhao Lian. Zhao Lian said, "Mr. Liu, you already know about me, so I don't need to tell you anything. This is all your fault. I didn't do it on purpose." Liu Chunjiang still ordered a cup of coffee, took a sip first, and said, "Of course it was my mistake. But that time at Xia's house, when you and Miss 8 went there, you were also a greeting guest. What does this mean?" Zhao Lian said, "Then, for the sake of Mrs.'s request for companionship, I represent my young mistress's going." When Zhao Lian said this, she was afraid that Pai Feng and the others would come too, so she got up and left. Liu Chunjiang understood her clearly when he saw her embarrassment. Zhao Lian settled the account and walked out of the canteen. This is a large corridor behind the scattered seats upstairs. Downstairs is also here. Zhao Lian stood there, hesitated for a while, and then went into the box. Feeling a little embarrassed, he just went downstairs, and was afraid that the young lady would be blamed. While he was hesitating, Liu Chunjiang suddenly came over and asked, "Why don't you go to the theater?" In the cafeteria just now, Zhao Lian leaned in front of the waiter and ignored Liu Chunjiang, which may arouse more suspicion. When you get here, people come and go without anyone noticing. She was embarrassed to talk to Liu Chunjiang, lowered her head, and walked downstairs. Liu Chunjiang saw that her face was still undecided and her eyelids were drooping, as if she was about to cry with tears in her eyes. The boss couldn't bear it. so he followed her downstairs. After walking out of the theater door, Liu Chunjiang said again, "Where are you going? Why are you like this? Have I offended you?" Zhao Lian said, "What have you done to offend me? I want to go back." Liu Chunjiang said, Why do you want to go back?" Zhao Lian said softly, "I'm sorry to see you." Liu Chunjiang said, you are wrong. I just had a lot to say to you, but you left first." As he said that, he pointed across the road and said, "There is a small restaurant over there. Do you think it would be good if we went there to talk?" Zhao Lian said, "What can we talk about?" Liu Chunjiang, he said, "Just go with me. I will have something to say." So he helped Zhao Lian and crossed the road in the empty space of the car. Zhao Lian walked to this small restaurant without a care in the world. After finding a private seat, Liu Chunjiang and Zhao Lian sat across from each other. At this time, Liu Chunjiang could talk freely, and said, "I understand what you are thinking very well. Do you think that I want to despise you because I already know the truth about you? But it's the other way around. You have to know, just because you are from the Jin family, I hate that I can't get close to you, and you are always cold to me. I will soon declare my disappointment. Now that I see you revealing the truth, I am very disappointed. It is obviously because you are afraid of breaking up with me. That's it. In this way, you have shown your sincerity to me. Why don't you be overjoyed? I have absolutely no class concept. I don't ask anything else. I only know that you are my best friend." Good friend. Zhao Lian thought that the truth had been revealed, and Liu Chunjiang must have disdained to interact with him. But now, after hearing his words, every word of his words really hit her heart. It is a great honor for people of the lower class to have friends of the upper class. Moreover, Liu Chunjiang is a person of the opposite sex, and he is also a handsome young man from a troubled world. How can a young woman who is striving for social status remain unmoved when he expresses affection for her like this? She then smiled and said, "Master Liu, although you are very sincere in what you say, are you still worried that there are not many ladies to make friends with you? Why do you have to associate with me as a maid?" Liu Chunjiang said, "Things in the world are like this. No wonder you doubt me. But as time goes by, you will definitely believe me. I want to ask you, why did you still attend the Xia family's happy event that day, even if you were there? Are you going? This seems to be a joke on me." Zhao Lian was using a spoon to scoop up the abalone soup from the plate, lowering her head and drinking it one spoonful at a time. Liu Chunjiang took the spoon in his hand, stretched it across the table, pressed Zhao Lian's plate, and said with a smile, "Tell me, what's the reason for this?" Zhao Lian pursed her lips and smiled, saying, "What's the mystery? It's just a coincidence. Going to Xia's house was just a joke by our wife and young mistress, but we didn't expect that this play would cause trouble." Liu Chunjiang retracted his hand and was scooping soup, chewing it in his mouth, listening to her explanation. When he heard that there was trouble, he was startled and asked, "What's wrong? What trouble has arisen?" He held a spoonful of soup in his hand, his eyes looking at Zhao Lian, waiting for a reply. Zhao Lian smiled and said, "What's the trouble? It just happened to you. But I wonder, why did Miss Bai invite me to the party that time? Maybe." As he said, he glanced at Liu Chunjiang. Liu Chunjiang did not hide anything and told Bai Yunbo in detail about his plan to treat him. Zhao Lian said, "You are too rash. How could you let so many people know about this?" Liu Chunjiang said, "If I don't let people know, how can I meet you?" Although Zhao Lian thought Liu Chunjiang's method was wrong, she was very happy to see that he was so infatuated with her. She raised her head and thought for a while, then smiled again. Liu Chunjiang said, "Do you have anything to say?" Zhao Lian said, "Nothing. Our young mistress thought I was still in the cafeteria. I'm going." After saying that, she stood up. Liu Chunjiang also stood up and asked, "Where will we meet in the future?" Zhao Lian shook her head and smiled, "No place." Liu Chunjiang said, "You absolutely cannot come out." Here Zhao Lian went back to the box, and Wu Paifeng said, "Why did you go for so long? I thought you went home." Zhao Lian said, "I didn't go home. There was a night market on the road, and I took a detour at the night market. Have I been gone for a long time?" Paifeng said, "Of course not. But the play on the stage was just when the cowherd and the weaver girl crossed the bridge, and Paifeng was watching it with great interest, so she didn't care whether Zhao Lianyan's words were true." After returning home, it was already 1 o'clock. The weather was not very cool yet, Zhao Lian brought a rattan couch under the corridor and lay on the rattan couch, gazing at the Milky Way in the sky and quietly enjoying the cool. Once people's hearts calmed down, the gentle evening breeze brought the fragrance of flowers in the yard to their faces, intoxicating them, and they fell asleep like this. Suddenly someone shouted, "Wake up, the sun is about to shine on your belly." When she opened her eyes, she saw Yanxi standing in front of her, kicking the rattan chair with her feet. Zhao Lian blushed, turned over and sat up, rubbing her eyes, and smiled. "Where did you come from so early in the morning? You scared me," Yanxi said. "Is it still early? It's past 8 o'clock. Zhao Lian said, "I was just confused for a while, and I didn't expect it to be this time." She stood up and walked inside. Yanxi pulled her clothes and said, "Don't be busy. I have something to ask you." Zhao Lian said, "What is it? Go ahead." Yanxi thought for a while, smiled and said, "What play did you watch last night? Was it okay?" Zhao Lian threw her hand and said, "You are talking nonsense." After that, she turned around and went into the house. Pai Feng asked across the room, "Who has Zhao Lian been arguing with since early this morning?" Zhao Lian said, "It was 7th Master." Yanxi said through the window, "She was sleeping under the porch last night and didn't get up until this time. I woke her up." Zhao Lian said, "Don't believe what 7th Master said. I got up early in the morning to enjoy the cool air. How could I sleep outside?" Yanxi followed and as she spoke, and asked, "Did the eldest leave?" Pai Feng said, "She didn't come back last night, and I don't know where she went to make trouble." As she spoke, she was wearing a long gown, barefoot and slippers, and standing by the door with half of the door curtain opened. Seeing Yanxi wearing a silk suit, she said with a smile, "It's so hot, why are you wearing a suit so tied up?" Yanxi said, "A friend invited me to visit Zishan. I thought it would be more convenient to walk up the mountain in a suit." Pai Feng said, "I was wondering, how could you get up so early? It turns out you are going to have fun. When you go to Zishan, don't forget to bring some fresh vegetables." Yanxi said, "My sister-in-law has said this many times. If you like to eat something, just ask the cook to add it. Why do you have to bring it from the country?" Pai Feng said, "What do you know? The cook bought it at the vegetable market. The vegetables are picked by the countrymen, prepared and sent to the city. After being sent to the city, they are distributed to the vegetable market by the vegetable shops. They may be displayed in the vegetable market for a few days before they are bought back. Don't think it is still fresh. They are soaked in water. After soaking for a few days, the freshness of the vegetables is completely soaked." Yanxi said, "This is just a small matter, but my sister-in-law is so careful." Pai Feng smiled and said, "I am careful about many things, just don't show off in front of me, Master Guan. Otherwise, I will know if you do it first." This made Yanxi feel a little embarrassed. Said, "I'm not nagging you early in the morning. Didn't you say that you wanted to join the Family Art Research Society? Now it's only 10 days away, and everyone's work needs to be sent in early. The people in the society have urged me several times. I promise to come back this evening to answer their letters. If I don't come to see you now, you will be out, and I won't be able to see you again." Pai Feng said, "What's the big deal? Are you so busy?" Yanxi said, "There is really no time left. One day after another, the deadline is over in the blink of an eye. You guys are so used to doing things in a routine way, so I have to push you hard." Pai Feng said, "What am I doing in a routine way? Tell me." Yanxi said, "Let's talk about the art club. I told you about it before, and you were all very happy and willing to do it. Now it's been almost a month, and I don't see where your works are. When I talk about it, you say it's still early. And what are you busy with? I've put it off until now, and I've even forgotten about it. How can you say you don't want to be in a routine way?" Pai Feng said, "Aren't there still more than 20 days? Don't worry, I will give it to you within 2 weeks. What do you think of the embroidery on my canvas?" Yanxi said, "That's good. I'll reply to people's letters like this at night, so don't make me fall." Yanxi said, and then he left. When he reached the moon gate, he turned around and smiled, "Let's see in 2 weeks." Pai Feng was inspired by him, washed her face, changed her clothes, and asked Zhao Lian, "Where is the embroidery on my canvas?" Zhao Lian said, "I was afraid it would get dirty, so I covered it with a towel and moved it upstairs. I locked the door when I hung the leather clothes last time. It's been about 3 weeks." Asking early in the morning, "What is that for?" Pai Feng said, "Don't ask. just take it down. Zhao Lian said, take it after dinner. Pai Feng said, you are being lazy again. I am waiting to do it now. Go and get it. Zhao Lian smiled and said, I don't want to do it for a month. When I think of it, I will do it immediately. You see, I can't do it for 2 hours, and I am tired of it again. Pai Feng said, you are getting bolder and bolder. You are talking about me? Zhao Lian didn't dare to argue, so she went upstairs and took down the embroidery frame. Pai Feng was busy washing her hands first, and then put the silk thread and needles on the small coffee table, facing the window with the embroidery frame. She didn't even drink tea, and hurried to embroider. She embroidered for 2 hours in one go. Fengzhi came back from outside and smiled. Why are you so happy today? And do this again. Pai Feng looked up and continued to embroider her flowers. Jin Fengzhi took off her long clothes while calling Zhao Lian. After calling twice and seeing no response, she said, Zhao Lian is always playing around now. She won't see anyone, no matter what you call her to do. Pai Feng asked, what do you need someone to do? Fengzhi said, ask her to hang up my clothes for me. Pai Feng lowered her head to embroider, saying, the clothes rack is in the room. You can just hang it up yourself. Why do you have to call someone? If you have the time to call someone, can't you do it yourself? Zhao Lian is 7 or 8 years old. You should also avoid her. Don't call her if there are some things that don't need to be asked of her. Fengzhi was about to hang up her long clothes. Zhang Ma, who was outside the corridor, heard that the master wanted to hang up long clothes, so she came in to take the clothes. Fengzhi waved her hand and said, no, no. She hung up the clothes herself, which made Zhang Ma a little embarrassed. Pai Feng said, Zhang Ma, go and pour me a cup of tea. Zhang Ma left, and Pai Feng glanced at Fengzhi and smiled with a curled mouth. Fengzhi stretched lazily, raised his hands, sat on the rattan couch, and said with a smile, what's the matter? Pai Feng picked up the needle and pointed at Fengzhi a few times, and said with a smile, you are so embarrassed. Fengzhi said, what's the matter? Pai Feng lowered her head to embroider and snorted. Fengzhi smiled and said, look at you like this. What's the matter? At this time, Zhang Ma brought tea. Pai Feng drank tea and remained silent. Zhang Ma left, and Pai Feng smiled and said, let me ask you, you first asked Zhao Lian to hang the clothes. Why don't you let Zhang Ma hang it? They are all the same hands. Why can some people hang it and others can't? Fengzhi said, this makes you picky again. Didn't you say that if you have time to ask someone, you can do it yourself? Now I hang it myself and don't ask anyone, but you think it's not good. Isn't this hard to say? Pai Feng said, okay, you are right. I won't say anything. After a while, 2 cooks came into the yard with boxes. They stopped under the eaves of the corridor. Then Zhang Ma brought it in. Zhang Ma asked Pai Feng, the meal is here. Will the eldest young lady eat? Pai Feng nodded. Zhang Ma placed 2 pairs of cups and chopsticks on the round table. She opened a box and brought the dishes to the table. There was a dish of shredded chicken mixed with cucumber, a dish of stir-fried bamboo shoots with cabbage slices, a dish of stir-fried pea sprouts with dried shrimps, and a large bowl of stewed ham. Fengzhi stood up first, took a look, and said with a smile, this is simply like a monk. All the dishes are so light. In any case, you should not let the chefs in Beijing cook for 3 months. After 3 months, something will go wrong. This is simply like a monk. Cucumbers are so cheap these days, and they still bring this out. Pai Feng said, what do you know? It's only hygienic to eat vegetarian food in summer. In such a hot day, you want to eat a lot of fish and meat with a greasy stomach. That's not good. I asked the chef to do this. You said cucumbers are cheap, but bamboo shoots and pea sprouts are not cheap, right? The chef heard it from outside and laughed through the curtain. What the eldest young lady said was true. Take the winter bamboo shoots for example. The market was filled with yellow sand, and the clay pots were covered, and they were sold like treasures. Even a dish like this would cost at least $1. If the master wants to eat meat, it is easy to get. But for these vegetarian dishes, which are tender and delicious, there is really no way to find them. Fengzhi smiled and said, when the eldest young lady speaks for you, you are so excited. Is there any ready-made dish in the kitchen? Bring me another bowl. The cook replied, there is a big braised crucian carp. Would you like it? Fengzhi said, that's it. The cook left, and soon, the cook brought the crucian carp. Zhao Lian also served the rice. Fengzhi said, don't cook anymore. It's time to eat. Pai Feng was embroidering, and she continued to embroider. Feng Zhu called her, but she just snorted and continued to work. Feng Zhu sat down, picked up the chopsticks, ate 2 pinches of fish, and knocked the chopsticks on the rice bowl and said, "It's time to eat, the food is all cold." Pei Feng said, "What's the big deal about eating cold food in hot weather? I came here while I was embroidering this leaf. You eat yours, there are only 2 stitches left." Feng Zhu said, "Wouldn't it be the same if you embroidered after eating? If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Once you start, you can't bear to let it go. Let me see what you are embroidering." As she said that, she came over. I saw a bunch of flowers embroidered on the canvas. The finished embroidery was covered with a piece of thin paper. Pei Feng was embroidering the leaves under 2 twin flowers in her hands. The flowers looked a bit like Japanese cherry flowers and a bit like Chinese roses, red and white like the face of a beauty. Feng Zhu smiled and said, "The color of this flower is beautiful, and there are 2 twin flowers. This should be what Zhongling said in Dream of Red Mansions, the husband and wife orchid, right?" Pei Feng said, "Is there such a beautiful man in the world?" Feng Zhu said, "I'm talking about flowers, not people." Pei Feng said, "You compare husband and wife, isn't that talking about people?" Feng Zhu said, "In your opinion, what should we compare?" Pei Feng said with a smile, "This is called Urkaya's beauty. According to popular saying, it is sister flowers. Don't you see that one is higher, one is lower, one is bigger, and one is smaller?" Feng Zhu said, "I finally understand why these 2 flowers are called sister flowers. Oh, 2 flowers can share a branch, and 2 people can." As he said this, he glanced at Pei Feng and saw that she was frowning, so he said, "What is its original name?" "This flower is very special. I have never seen it before." Pei Feng said, "How could you not know this flower? It is called the love flower." Feng Zhu said with a smile, "So it is an imported product. I didn't expect it. This is very interesting. The name of the flower is love, and the shape it blooms is sisters. So, this root is the root of love, and the leaves are the leaves of love. Who are you going to give this frame of flowers to? I guess it's your friend who is getting married, so you are in a hurry to give this thing to someone, right?" Pei Feng said, "If you want to give it to someone, I won't buy things to give to others. Why do you spend so much effort? No one is so big as to ask me to embroider this kind of flowers for him." Feng Zhu smiled and said, "Yes, there is one." Pei Feng stopped embroidering, tilted her head, and asked, "Who?" Feng Zhu pointed at her nose with a finger and smiled, "It's just that I am not talented." Pei Feng curled her lips and said, "Humph. Just you?" Feng Zhu said, "What? Am I not worthy? Then, why are you in a hurry to embroider this thing?" Pei Feng said, "Why should I tell you?" Feng Zhu said, "Just don't tell me. I don't need to ask. But you want me to wait for you to eat in order to rush to embroider flowers, which is an infringement of my freedom, and I can't agree with you." Pei Feng smiled and stopped needlework, raised her hand, and inserted the needle into her head. Suddenly she thought, her hair had been cut, the needle could not be inserted further, and then she inserted it to the side of the stretcher. Feng Zhu smiled and said, "I've thought of a reason for women who take care of their hair. It's that it's not convenient to wear flowers after cutting hair, and it's not convenient to insert needles." Just when she said this, she heard someone outside the curtain say, "Is that the reason? It's too small." As she said that, she lifted the curtain and walked into the room. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.